Brought to you by BedroomBattlefields.com, this is the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. First up, Mark, tell us a wee bit about the recent Games Day that you were participating in.
Yeah, it was. So that was just about 10 days ago, on the 26th of October. We did our second Games Day. So we did one in April, and then we've done one again in October. Big Warhammer game. So multiplayer game. We had 5 people in the end, which was then made up. So 2 people on the side, and Jason, who essentially was running the event, he acted as an independent GM for the game and running it and helping support it and so on. It was a 20-foot long table, 6 foot wide, so absolutely massive. There's photos on the Discord of it, and it was based on a scenario following on from our previous game. So it's got a kind of campaign narrative structure. So the idea was that the orc troops were raiding, along with some undead allies, this town, a port. So there was a mouth of the river, and then it went out to sea, and there were some docks. And initially, all the orcs were coming in over the land against the town walls, and the town, we had to decide how best to defend the town. But then there was twists and turns throughout the game. So, after a certain amount of time, people started coming in via the sea, and there was these boats arriving. So we're having to redeploy troops up there, and we had some reinforcements, but we didn't know exactly when they were going to arrive. And then down the far end of the table, there was a wooded area with where some wood elves lived, who were kind of defending their area, but maybe not interested particularly in protecting the Empire town and so on. So it got this kind of different storytelling elements going on. We kind of deployed all the troops in very much straight in. So there's a lot of things that were kind of in the middle of the table rather than lined up in neat blocks around the edges. So it meant that once we got going, because we had the whole day at it, but as you can imagine, with a massive game like that, it could take ages. But we got through 4 turns of it at kind of good pace, actually, and it was all because we kind of started, and it just it was going. So that was a really kind of cool way to do it, and it was really, really successful. We had the same guys who came to the previous one, so Ed and Luke and Jason and myself, plus we had an extra person, Tim, who joined us. It was great to have someone else come along, and there's more room for more people if we do one again, which is definitely the plan. We're looking at doing something in the spring. So, and it seems like a really good format and a really good way of running something that's considerably bigger than anything you could run in your own home or anything you might get at a club or so on. So we got there at sort of just after 8, Jason and I did, and started setting up, and we were packed up and done by about 7 o'clock in the evening. So it's a long day, but the actual kind of amount of playing time we got was somewhere between probably about 8 hours, from about 10 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, which sounds exhausting, but it was at a pace that was quite, it went by really quick, actually. And it wasn't too brain muddling or anything like that. It was all quite straightforward and easy to kind of understand. And Jason chucked in loads of kind of cool role-playing elements as well. So one of the things that was cool was we had the Wandering Wizard. Jeff was a guest star, so he featured as a wizard on the Empire side, and ended up, well, as you would expect, fluffing his lines and not being able to get the spell off. So he rolled on the spell miscast table, which ended up playing out a kind of really significant part of the battle as well, which was really cool. So all these kind of little storytelling things, we managed to get involved, and then Jason sort of ran certain bits of it in a slightly role-playing game kind of a way. So, okay, so you've got this guy and he's been transported, how Jeff got transported up to this wizard's tower, and the wizard had got this undead stone, and he was worshipping it and trying to do something, but it was all going to go horribly wrong. So it became this sort of battle of negotiations and who's going to do what, which was really cool, actually, because it just brought a totally different element to the game, very free form. It wouldn't have worked without people on the same page collaborating, but yeah, it was really good. So although it was competitive, it was kind of, it's very collaborative and very easygoing as well. So yeah, really good game, really successful way of running it. So I think we've done it twice now in the same sort of format. So pretty confident that is a good way to do it. So putting it out there to anyone in the community. I know not everyone can get there, but we're hopefully holding it at a relatively central location, and it's certainly spectacular.
Yeah,
And great fun as well.
Aye, it looked brilliant. I was looking at the photos, and you've kind of alluded to this already, but like, how does your brain feel after a game like that? And also, like, how do you feel now in terms of like the rules that you're playing there? I mean, what Warhammer Edition was it you were playing? Or was it a bit of a mixture?
Edition, yeah, it was the 6th edition of Warhammer, but with the 4th edition magic in. So the 4th edition magic is the one where you've got playing cards and you have different spells, and it's kind of a game within a game. So as a result, you could probably use it for all sorts of game systems, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like it kind of operates as its own thing. So we did that. The 6th edition rules are relatively stripped back. They're the more stripped back of the rules. But we also had, although there's a lot of troops, there'd be things like, there's a unit of goblins, but there's 100 of them. So it's still only one unit of goblins. So it doesn't really take you a lot longer than if you had 20 goblins in the unit, really, to actually move the tray, roll the dice for the ones who are attacking, see what the result is, stuff like that. And as a result, there was a lot of things like, built into Warhammer is a lot of stuff around the psychology rules. So when you've got loads of troops on the table, if they just start fleeing and panicking, then they'll make other ones flee and panic. So it was it actually resolved itself quicker than you might think. I think in terms of the kind of the rules and kind of getting all that on board, I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that it's a relatively complex game, but we were still all right, and it wasn't too frying. I think there's an element, of perhaps because we're playing in a kind of storytelling kind of a way with a big landscape and a lot of stuff going on, then, if someone got a 3 when they should have needed a 4, it kind of doesn't really make a massive amount of difference in the scheme of things. Whereas if you're playing a skirmish game with 5 characters and one of them dies when they shouldn't have done, that can probably throw the whole game and change the whole thing very dramatically. So I think that it's probably a bit more forgiving in a weird way, playing a big battle, and things like movement, as long as you're roughly about the right sort of amount of distance, what difference is it really going to make in the scheme of things? So it was probably the nature of the game made it easier going, but I wasn't too brain fried actually by the end of it. I was actually, because you're going through and you're playing it with more people around the table as well, but helping each other out with the rules. So although there was ostensibly, myself and Luke playing against Tim and Ed, but really we're going, I think you need to do that, and we're helping each other out. So it was pretty easy going. Tim hadn't played Warhammer at all, I think, before, and Ed and Luke and I had only played it like once really at the games day. So since the 90s. So I think it was a success, and even though it sounded complex.
Great stuff, yeah. And it looks like you've got a poll for trying to gauge interest or availability for doing something next year as well.
Yeah, there is. I think it's still probably got, at the time of recording, another. I think I put it up on the day after the games day, so the Sunday, and I put it up for a fortnight. So it's on there. So if you want to go on and vote, it's just sort of saying like Saturday, Sundays, weekdays. Is it better in March, April, or May? And would you prefer somewhere that was kind of more in the north of the UK, more in the south, or more central? Just to kind of gauge roughly whether or not there's a huge appetite for doing something that we're not serving. And if there was, then there'd be definitely merit in saying, well, we could run 2 concurrent events. You just need 2 people to say, well, I could do that. But, I suppose the elephant in the room on that one is that Jason has got vast quantities of stuff. So without all that huge amount of stuff, you can't really do it at that scale, but you could still do something at all sorts of scales. Yeah. Definitely.
I know it's great to see that it's going on, and it's brilliant to hear about it as well, and see the photos, like I say. So I hope you are able to keep doing it, and I also hope to at some stage be able to manage down to one. Whether I'd get away with 2 trips to England in a year for nerd related things is a different story, but we live in hope. So on the subject of the Discord, then, have you spotted much in there recently? Things that have been painted, wee projects or that have been worked on?
Yeah, there's been some great stuff going on actually. I mean, for example, I just had a quick look back actually what's been going on in October now that we're just into November, just to get a bit of a gauge of it because there's so much going on. Sometimes it's like the volume of stuff's great, but it's sometimes hard to keep up. So a bit of a summary of what's been on there I thought was useful. So we've had 10 new members, which is brilliant. Many of whom are really actively contributing and getting involved and telling their story and showing their stuff, which is ace. Um, there's been a lot of stuff on there in terms of general chat because it's always a good place to hang out in terms of stupid things that people talk about. So there's been conversations about things like Jason and the Argonauts and Babylon 5 and all these kind of completely unrelated things, but it's kind of it's a good place. Even if you're thinking, I don't know if I'll join the Discord because I haven't got stuff to share or stuff to do, it is just a sort of a fun, light-hearted community anyway where we chat about various things. I think the miniatures channel is always really, really inspiring and really cool. And there's been some great stuff in there. There's a few I wanted to really call out. I thought were good. I think that Ed put a Paw Patrol truck that he'd bought from somewhere, and he turned it into a Chaos Squad APC and added loads of skulls and various things like that to it. And it was just really, really super cool, and just stuff like that. Toy bashing, like I know Carl does a lot of. It's that's always really great to see because you just get these amazing, weird, and wacky things that are created out of nothing, and other people have been creating things out of nothing as well. So like Dr. Sport, he's been creating some amazing terrain, but he's also doing some actual hand sculpting of some night goblins as well, which are brilliant. It's worth checking those out. And a really big special mention to Dave Crow, who hand sculpted his own dwarf Jeff for the solo campaign. But rather than just get one off 3D printed and get it sent in the post, he decided to make his own, which is just wicked. And there's also been quite a lot of people have been involved in the Call of the Crown challenge that David's been running over on the Crown of Command podcast. And I've been sharing stuff at both the Crown of Command and also in ours. So like Ted, for example, he's shared his amazing Slan priest on a big floating throne with all these lizard men. There's just some really cool stuff on there that people have been doing. So check it out because it's just a bit of something for everyone. And it's not all just Golden Demon style miniature painting at all. It's like there's various different styles, different approaches, and there's something for everyone really. So that's always good. I think that some of the other stuff that's been on there really was around people getting together and doing stuff. So obviously I mentioned our games day that we did, but also just this weekend just gone, there's a big convention in America called Fall In, and Rob and Cameron and Chris were all there, and they've shared loads of pictures from what they were doing. There was loads and loads of stuff going on. It looked like a massive thing at a huge convention centre, so that was pretty cool and interesting for us British people to see these multi-day hotel-based conventions. They're like on a different scale, really, and they do look like they probably provide absolutely loads of like something for everyone. And sort of alongside that as well, Carl hosted a Chicago Skirmish Wargamers and Bedroom Battlefield get together where they were doing like toy bashing, making stuff, bringing like you come along and then you pick up some of stuff from his amazing treasure trove of plastic goodies in his garage and make your own terrain. Then they had a big game in the afternoon, so that was really cool to see. And people have been sharing other things on there as well around books they've been reading, old White Dwarfs they've been going through. I noticed George was sharing a bit on there about how he's going through some really old issues of like late 80s, early 90s White Dwarfs. I think he's got them on his Old Hammer and Tongs YouTube channel as well, so that's worth looking out for. And he was sort of saying about how it's just that really lovely moment where you can just spend hours literally reading them cover to cover. Probably something you didn't really do as a kid, read every single article and just read all the way through them. I know you've been doing that as well. And then another kind of great place on there is always the hobby parenting channel. So you shared pictures of yourself and your daughter off at Stirling Castle and getting some kind of combat card things from there, I saw.
Yeah, that's right. It's so Historic Scotland. I didn't realise this, but they do a collectible thing where because me and my wife have got memberships, so we could take her about the place, and It was one of the ladies there had said, "Oh, the wee one could collect these cards. So here's your first one you visited today." And I think the idea is, I don't know if Edinburgh Castle falls under Historic Scotland or not, but say it did, and you go there, you would get another card basically, and you collect these, and they're like top trumps, I think. So, just a pretty cool wee idea to sort of gamify dragging around these places. Not that she doesn't like it anyway, but good fun. So.
That's cool. Does it have a statistic on there for like number of Englishmen killed?
It's like it isn't. The card wasn't tailored to Stirling, I don't think. So it wasn't it wasn't like the Stirling Castle combat card. But that would have been a better idea, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I've got this one. Look at the bloodshed rating. Fantastic. So yeah, there's been some wicked stuff on the Discord, and then also alongside it, there's been loads of chat and loads of discussion about. I mean, I wouldn't call it a flame war. I think that's probably a bit over the top, but there's been a lot of people with quite different views on what is an overly complex rules, or what is a good set of rules, or what simplicity is versus complexity, and all this kind of stuff. And what's really cool with it is just how everyone's very different in what they're looking for, but we're all looking to kind of create perhaps a similar end experience in terms of the way that a tabletop game plays, rather than a board game or a card game or a video game where it's like, well, it does what it does, here's the edges of it, and that's what we do. People are kind of like, they're wanting an experience, and how they get that experience is very personal to them. And it's that's not just the rules, because like some people were saying, that set of rules is more complicated, so I don't want to play it. But then other people say, well, I actually want I want to be spending a bit more time and thinking about it. Or other people are saying, well, I'm not really that worried about the rules, as long as it's it depends on who I'm playing and the environment I'm in and all that kind of stuff. And it's all really pertinent, actually. I think it's really good. I kind of wrote down here, we are united in our common purpose and our common pettiness as well. So everyone likes to have the last word on it, which is absolutely as it should be. But at the same time, it is really refreshing to see how many people have got shared views on things and different views on stuff. But we can all kind of sharing it together. And then finally, I just wanted to touch on the Thundercats annual that you found.
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know what year it's from, but I got the wee one and said, "Oh, let's read you this," and she seemed pretty. I wouldn't say captivated. It wasn't going as far as the Bruins standard, which is her gold standard for any sort of comic style book. But Panthro got into a bit of a situation where him and a warrior maiden from the warrior maiden village, they got locked in a cave, and it was these rock men trying to get in. Panthro and her got out, and when he went back to the maiden's village, they were all like, what are the things that you get put on you when you go to Hawaii?
Okay, like the garlands for the flowers.
So they put that on him, and they were all around him, and Panthro looked very happy at that point. So whether he went back to the Cat's Lair that night or not, I don't know. But I do notice in the Thundercats book as well, and I did watch all the DVDs like about 10 years ago, so in adult life, and like Lion-O, I held him to like quite high regard when I was a kid because he was like Lord of the Thundercats. But you see now he's just this massive man-child buffoon. And the other Thundercats, they don't really like him because he's just a hereditary, like just a big kid in a roided up man's body. So they are always having to kind of bail him out of situations just because he's a bit stupid. So yeah, he's not very liked in the Thundercats lore, which when you watch it as an adult, you realise this. So I'll keep the listener up to date with more Thundercats developments as they emerge.
Excellent. No, that sounds fantastic. No, I thought it was great, and I love the art style of it as well. It's just something about the way that things used to look like then, when they only could afford to print things in about 3 colours.
Yeah.
So it's just all really washed out and yellow and odd. Yeah.
You think that's because it's a book from 1986, but if you opened it in 1986, it would just have looked exactly the same.
Yeah, but in your mind, it would have felt like exactly like watching it on the TV, and you'd imagine it all, and you'd be there. So.
Yeah, I could hear the voices. Yeah. So Snarf, never a big fan of Snarf, to be honest, as well.
He's fairly irritating.
Him and Lionel are welcome to each other. So, but interesting what you're saying there. Yeah, there was a lot of good discussion came off the back of the episode that I did with Dan about episode length and, like you're saying, rules complexity and that. And loads of great comments and points on all sides. And I think the beauty of it was just reading that is thinking, well, it's great because everyone's got their own hobby and they could do exactly what they want with it. Nobody's going to make you play a massively long, complicated game if you don't want to, and vice versa. If that's what you're really into, you don't have to go and play 45-minute skirmish games. Nobody has to. They don't have to build their hobby around other people's wants or expectations. So I think that's just a really good positive to take away from it all.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think as well the opportunities to do stuff in your own way is quite a rare treat. It feels like there's a lot of stuff in life where there are restrictions and there are kind of structures, or it's quite an on rails kind of experience, or you're just consuming something, whereas this is very creative and it's very open-ended. So I think that's what people enjoy. They can just approach it in whatever way they want. I'm sure there's people on our Discord who read that and think, well, I never play a game, I just paint the models and put them in a cabinet and they're happy as Larry. So it really is it's cliche, isn't it? But it is horses for courses, and anyone can get the experience they want out of it, which is great.
Well, I think we'll jump into our clips just now. We'll hear from everyone about their local game stores, their gaming clubs and all that good stuff. We'll find out a bit more about that all. And out the other side of that, I'll talk about the next month's question of the month and also a couple other wee things that we need to mention as well.
Hello from Perth, Western Australia. Ringing in for the hobby question of the month of October. My local club, and one that I've now been going to for probably about 6 months, is PMGG, Perth Miniature Gamers Group. Meets in a German pub in Mairie in Perth, Western Australia, which means obviously you get beer while you play a game. It's immediately a good place to start. In terms of the games that we play, it's quite a large group with very diverse kind of gaming. A bit of black powder, there's some bolt action, there's various other things going on, a lot of battle tech. I myself, we're talking sharp practice, chain of command, what a cowboy, quite a bit of saga. That's actually how I got to the club in the first place. I went to a saga open day that they had, played a bit of a tournament, got the wooden spoon, which is pretty much standard for me. But that was it. That brought me into the club, and it would be remiss of me not to mention the local store we have as well, which is Tactics here in Perth, which is, in my humble and not particularly well-travelled version, probably the best hobby store in the world. Has a little bit of everything, and it's kind of fantastic, really. So, and thanks for the podcast. It's always interesting to get that real diverse range of things and not get caught into one type of gaming, I suppose.
Hi, Dave Crow here. Just giving my question of the month feedback, which is about our local gaming club. So me and my son, who's about 13, spotted a sign up in the local library, Warhammer Club, Saturday afternoon. And we thought, yep, great, let's go and check that out. So we went down there. Reasonably good number of people. Seemed to be 2 or 3 games of 40k going on, set up by a fellow who was looking to find some players for his son who'd been getting into 40k to show him the ropes and get him on the go with it. For my part, we're not really playing 40k anymore. I have been largely playing with my son, who's 13. He's not really ready to get into, the full 40k experience. We've been playing a lot more simpler games. We've been playing Tonks. I've been playing Gorka Morka, and sometimes just making things up as we go along a bit, keeping it chill, keeping it fun. Been playing Burrows and Badgers as well with them. The roll-off system, seems to be pretty easy to get a handle on. And we went down, first time we went, played some Gorgmorka. A couple of other guys that were around, jumped in and joined us for a quick game of that. Second time we went, we played some Burrows and Badgers. And third time, we've been setting up a Tomb King's army with them. So we had some Tomb Kings versus Goblins. His wee mate's been coming along as well. So I've sort of been running games for the two of them. Other players around are playing largely 40k, but also a lot of Blood Bowl, it seems. So I'd be excited to maybe get the old Goblin team out for Blood Bowl again, and maybe see how the new rules for Blood Bowl are to play. I wouldn't really be that bothered in new rules for 40k though. But at the same time, I'm not kind of feeling all, not gatekeepy, but I don't want to be like you can play other things but 40k evangelist, because I understand that people are invested in this game. They've built armies and they want to use them. They've got the new rules and they're looking for other players that are playing the same rules. And that's great. It's good to see, the hobby's alive and well and people are doing their thing. At the same time, there's ones like myself who are maybe, 40 years old, played 40k 10 years ago and are still sitting on 4 old armies and boxes and might like to get the old minis out for a spin. And if anyone wants to play, 5th edition 40k, I'd be down for that. I could throw together a couple of small forces and, run a game of 40k for, other ones, especially wee ones who don't have their own army book or their own army, but are interested in all. And, I'll bring my old minis out and, people will probably be interested to see some of the older stuff on the tabletop again as well. So it's good to kind of see the variety of, different people at different ages in their lives, different kind of reasons for coming down, what they want to do, or what they can do, or what I might be able to do for folks with my own experience. Or my situation is very much running games for my own son, for his mate, and somebody else wants to jump in on that, they don't mind too. So it's nice to be able to to be there and do that too. We've only been going a couple of months now, and it looks like it's getting bigger and doing really well. So, cheers.
Hello, David from Axanix here, and today I'm talking about my local hobby store, the Sentry Box. In Canada, the Sentry Box is one of the legendary gaming stores. They say it's the biggest in the world, but hard to quite say that myself. It is gigantic. I've been gaming there since 2018, I think. Whenever Rangers of Shadow Deep dropped, that's when I started gaming there. And I've been shopping there since the late 2000s, shortly after I moved to the city. And anyone who's a geek in Calgary and probably beyond will know the Sentry Box. You will see a wide variety of miniatures that you would not normally see anywhere else, especially in those days. They were known for having quite an eclectic collection. And it's very nice to be able to buy a lot of the stuff you'd have to order online locally. Their prices are so-so, but their selection and their staff are super friendly. It's a very welcoming and inclusive environment. And honestly, you can't ask for much more in a local hobby store, except for, the sweet, sweet discount prices on Games Workshop, which they do not have.
Hello, this is Darren again, Narad from the Discord server. And I thought I'd call in to talk about a brand new store and club that I just discovered. I've only recently gotten into trying to actually play more miniature skirmish games. I've been a RPGer lifelong. And so I've never had a gaming club or I've never been much of a store player. And the stores around my neck of the woods in California tend to be more Magic focused, or for whatever reason, never got into them. And then I heard about this this store up in a very small, tiny town, deep in the redwoods in the Santa Cruz Mountains. The kind of place that takes a long time to get to from anywhere. It's called Herrick's Hobbies and Games. And I think mostly it's an online store. They've got a good online store. If you Googled Herrick's Hobbies, you'd find it, selling Warhammer type stuff. But I was interested that it was fairly local. I can get to it from my house in 45 minutes. It would be much closer if I was flying, but the way the canyons and the topography is around here, it takes a long time. And anyway, so I made a big order for my birthday last month. I was like, I'm going to splurge on some Chaos Warrior models I've always wanted. Then I decided instead of getting the free shipping, I would go pick it up myself. So I went in there, and this store is only open from 7 to 11 p.m. on Thursdays and Fridays. So it had to be a day I didn't have work the next day. And I guess Thursdays it turns out is their Warhammer night. So I went in on Thursday, and it's in this old logging town, kind of redneck town, and the building is an old a former post office, and apparently possibly a former brothel, I heard a rumor. But it's kind of a neat, bigger space, and no sign, just a tiny little Warhammer logo on the door, and doesn't open till dusk. But man, once you get in there, what a spot. This guy has all the products. It is so stocked with all the GW products, but then also all the different hobby products, all the different paint ranges, and all the things that have come out in recent years that are so fun. The owner, Sky, said that that's kind of his business model. They just wanted to get all his favorite stuff that he wanted to use in stock in one place for people to check out. And it turned out there was a really nice group of gamers that actually, apparently their group predated the store opening, and they play Old World. They're old, kind of old, long-term Warhammer players, and they do 8th edition in Old World, and so I was able to get in they play multiple games every night, every Thursday night. And I was able to, the second time I went in, get an introductory game to Old World, and it was great. So, long rambling story, sorry about that. But neat to have discovered a store and a venue and a gaming group that I had never known about, and now I'm happy to try to access whenever my dad life will occasionally allow me. Anyway, love the podcast as always. Keep up the good work. Cheers.
Matthew, this is Rob Dean from the Discord. You asked about local clubs, and this may be a bit of a long answer. My son and I talked about the club in the episode we recorded back in April. I've been a member of the Hawks, the Hartford area weekly Kriegspielers, since 1994, almost back to the beginning of the group, so about 30 years. The most unusual thing about the group is that it is mostly game masters who are able to show up for a club meeting with the material to host a 6 to 8 player game out of their own resources. The game masters are often polishing scenarios that we use for participation games at conventions. It's been that way pretty much since the beginning. Members who only play, of course, are also welcome, although I would note that we do what we can to support them if they choose to extend into doing their own game mastering. We meet twice a month in a local church hall, although there are often games with open invitations going on at members' houses on other weeks. So while the weekly in our title is a bit aspirational, it wouldn't be unusual for something to be going on weekly. We also occasionally borrow the church hall for an informal game day with invites to all local gamers. These typically involve 8 or so games divided into 2 blocks, a morning and an afternoon block, and we sometimes get guest game masters in for these. We run Barrage, our local gaming convention, in September, which is a 2-day affair. This year we had about 60 games and about 200 people in attendance. If you came to a club meeting, you might find almost anything. The first meeting in October featured a 10mm Ancients game using Simon Miller's To the Strongest with Carthage versus Syracuse sometime in the 3rd or 4th century BC, and a 28mm World War I skirmish game using Combat Patrol, a card-driven rules set by club member Buck Surdu. Club members, especially Buck, have published a lot of rules, so it's very common to see those in use. There are also a lot of games with unpublished homebrew rules. Oddly enough, the one thing you will almost certainly won't see if you came to a meeting would be any Games Workshop game being played. But why that is a longer explanation and maybe something to do for a different month.
Hi, this is Dan here, also known as Boaty McBoatface on the Discord. The local gaming club I'd like to give a shout out to is Tabletop Republic in the town of High Wycombe, which is in the southeast of England, just outside London. I stumbled across it in, I think it was 2020 during COVID, and consider myself really lucky that I did. So my story, similar to many listeners, is I returned to the hobby in, I think it was 2018 or 2019, after about a 2-decade hiatus. So my son and I discovered a Warhammer Fantasy Battle 4th edition box set in my parents' loft, and he thought it looked cool. So I started gradually painting up the miniatures again, and we played a few games, and that piqued my interest. So I wanted to further my exploration back into that world. So I went along to a local games workshop, which was also in the town of High Wycombe, which itself was great. It was, very welcoming. But when I went in, I was slightly perturbed. I couldn't see any square bases. So I asked the friendly assistant, who started telling me that the old world had been blown up, and started talking about something to do with Sigmar being thrown into the void, and there was this new game, Age of Sigmar. And honestly, it's one of those out-of-body experiences. While he was talking, my world started to crumble. My naive visions of sort of enhancing my army, picking up where I left off in the mid-90s, had just been blown to pieces. So I left that slightly disheartened, to be honest. But fast forward a year or two, I just happened by complete chance to come across this shop in the same town that had some miniatures in the window, and walked in. Looked around, and it had all of these games, all the Warhammer ones, but also loads of others I'd never heard of. Spoke to the owner, a really friendly chap called Tom, who introduced me to Kings of War, which was a very similar game with square bases that you could use your models on. And he encouraged me to come along to one of their groups. And they were absolutely brilliant. Welcomed me enthusiastically into the fold. Gave me some demo games. Gave me a load of tips. I started playing, bought some stuff, and never looked back. I don't get to go as long as I'd like, but that doesn't seem to matter. There's always a friendly face there. It's a nice sort of light, airy feel. It's not dark and dingy, which can be a bit off-putting in places. It's got a decent stock, loads of tables. But one of the things that makes it so good is it positions itself as more of a community resource. So it's more than just a shop or a club. And it's gained a really good Discord community as well, a bit like this one. In terms of the games, they seem to have a bit of everything. All the big ones, all the Games Workshop ones, all the Warhammer ones, and a lot of the other ones that people recognise. There's always a D&D gathering. There's loads of card games there, Star Wars, all of the ones that people would recognise. Also, in a bit of a shrewd move, I noticed they also have a Pokemon club for kids that they run at weekends, which is probably a clever way of getting youngsters into the hobby. If it was close to my home, I'd probably be there more often. But I get there as much as I can. So yeah, that's my local gaming club, Tabletop Republic. Thanks.
Hello, Matthew. It's Ed from the Discord and Sussex. I just thought I'd give you a quick call and tell you a little about my local friendly gaming club. I live in Horsham in Sussex, and we have the Horsham Wargaming Club, which has been around for nearly 2 years now, full of very enthusiastic wargamers. I was introduced to it by a friend who knew quite a few of the founding members. And I was looking to meet more people to play games, and so he took me down there. I actually introduced Space Widows to the club, and have played it with a number of players there, with some success. And I have enjoyed myself so much down there that I'm now, as of the summer, one of the stewards of the club. So I go along and help set up, help pack away, and all the other necessary evils that are required to run a club, such as painting scenery and helping make new members feel welcome. And it really is such a wonderful place to be. We meet currently every other week, although that may change. We're looking to possibly meet every week on a weekly basis on a Sunday. And there are a really broad variety of games played there. You have, of course, the typical GW games, so you definitely see plenty of Warhammer in terms of the latest edition of 40k, a little bit of Age of Sigmar, the occasional Old World battle goes on. Sometimes there's even games such as Blood Bowl. There's a bit of a resurgence of Necromunda, which is really great to see. The modern version of the game, not my preferred, which would be the OG Necromunda 95. But there again, I am very much that old school style gamer. Which is why I have been instigating a return to 2nd edition 40k at the club. Again, I've got a number of players that I play with there, 2nd edition, which is great fun. But it's not just the GW games that I played at the club. We see Song of Ice and Fire played quite a bit. The Lord of the Rings, which of course is GW, but of Tolkien descent rather than the Warhammer descent, I suppose. Gaslands is a firm favourite of club members, and is one great fun to play. Was introduced to the game at the club, and I love bashing away with toys and creating new races to try and cause mayhem on the track. So it's really quite a varied and interesting place to go and play. I've made many new friends there. And yeah, I'd highly recommend people finding a local gaming club to go and engage with, because you can get a huge amount out of it. I know it's not always possible for some people, which is why communities like yours is so good, because we get to exchange ideas and give that encouragement that might otherwise find at a local club. Which kind of leads me on to a second gaming club that I'm part of, a slightly secret gaming club, which meets 2 or 3 times a year. In fact, we're meeting this Saturday, the 26th of October, just north of Birmingham, where we're going to be playing a massive game of Warhammer. And it is, of course, the Bedroom Battlefields Discord club, where there are so many wonderful people, and I highly recommend, if people are looking for a way to engage with other gamers, that come and join us in the Discord. They're a really friendly crew there. Every now and then we do try to get together, a few of us, and play games of tabletop war games. So yeah, those are my clubs that I'm a part of, my local club, and the club that your podcast has so wonderfully introduced me to. So thank you very much, Matt.
Hello, my name is Bill Graham. I am a member of the San Diego Historical Miniature Wargamers. in, of course, San Diego, California. We game at a shop called Game Empire on Claremont Mesa Boulevard in San Diego. We've gamed there as it has over 3 different locations ever since the late 90s. We get together every Tuesday. There are 8 to 10 tables, lots of terrain, mainly fantasy-oriented terrain, but this shop is very, very accepting of us historical gamers. There's about 5 or 6 of us that are kind of the core that have most of the minis and put on the games, and there's probably another 5 or 6 that come and game with us regularly. The shop originally had a fair amount of historical stuff, primarily Foundry, but these days it really is only fantasy miniatures, Warhammers, Star Wars, BattleTech, things like that. We try to, buy our supplies there as much as possible in order to support the store. As a group, we originally were very much into the rank and flank games. I think as time has went on, we've kind of followed the hobby and moved much more towards skirmish games. I guess to keep up our Grown-Yard cred, we do usually play DBA once a week. We play all the rampant games. We very much enjoy those, and we've had a number of group projects of all of us built ECW forces for Pikeland's Men. We all built War of the Roses forces for Lion Rampant, and all built AWI forces for Rebels and Patriots. We do play Musket and Tomahawks. As time has went on, despite our name, we've moved much more towards fantasy and sci-fi. A lot of Xenos Rampant, and ironically, I never played a Games Workshop game in my life. I got into the hobby through board gaming originally, but on eBay, I've bought a lot of Imperial Guard and Space Marines, and so my Xenos Rampant forces are all GW products, even though I've never played a GW game. We're also getting together. We're going to start a Rangers of Shadow Deep campaign, which is kind of has been inspired in part, of course, by your podcast and your coverage of that game. You can find us on the web and on Facebook, San Diego Historical Miniature Wargamers. We really pride ourselves on putting on convention quality games every week, and I think you'll really see that on our web presence. We are having our 3rd annual one-day convention called Advance 25. It's going to be on April 5th at the Community Center in MacArthur Park in La Mesa, California, which is a small city just outside San Diego. So anyway, I would invite you all to check out our web presence, and you'll see some really great games. And if any of you are within driving range, I would very much invite you to Advance 25. I love the podcast. I look forward to the next episode. Thanks a lot.
Hello, Matthew and the rest of the Bedroom Battlefields community. This is Carl Paulson from Chicago Skirmish Wargames. Myself and the club got the privilege to speak with you all back on the podcast back in May of 2023. But briefly about Chicago Skirmish Wargames, if you were to show up on a club night, you would find yourself in my basement with some snacks, a bit of beer, a lot of really good, if I may say, looking terrain, and of course, all painted miniatures. You'd find probably 4 to 6, possibly 8 on a good night, very friendly gamers. Just looking to have a good time, usually an independent rule set or something that we've been playing for a while. Many of the games we play, Song of Blades and Heroes, Mordheim, one-page rules, especially Grimdark Future, Kings of War, Conflict 47, Alpha Strike. We do tend to lean towards independent or rules agnostic games, just kind of what we like to do to play with the miniatures in our collection as often as possible. As for the miniatures, you'd see literally the entire history of miniatures from the late 70s, early 80s through today. We've got collectors in the club who've been playing for a couple decades now, and we use those figures over and over in many games. So You're going to find Rolp, Partha, and Grenadier, and Games Workshop. Probably some newer 3D printed stuff from One Page Rules. You're going to find basically everything in between. It's a history of miniatures down here, and we kind of love it that way. You never know what you're going to see on the table. So that's most importantly, though, you'd find a lot of really friendly people who are just many cases have known each other for over a decade now, but always open to new people and just really enjoying the hobby together, and who treasure our time just to peacefully and happily enjoy this hobby within a low stress environment. So that's pretty much the Chicago Skirmish Wargames experience. Kind of see why I've come to like it so much. If any of you are in the Chicago area, feel free to stop by sometime. We game the second and fourth Mondays of the month. Our contact, you can find us at chicagoskirmishwargames.com/blog, I believe is the address. And whatever you're doing, I hope you all are finding fun and fellowship in a supportive, enjoyable hobby club. There really is nothing else quite like it. Thank you so much.
This is Wally, otherwise known as Wallace Wargamer on the Discord, talking about my gaming club and local hobby store, both of which are really just quite amazing. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and the gaming store that's closest to me, which is a little south of Salt Lake, is called Gajo Games, and it is one of the most incredible gaming stores or hobby stores that I've been to, specifically for the miniature wargaming hobby. It's the only store that I've been to, at least in the United States, that is 100% dedicated to miniature wargaming. There's no, collectible card gaming, other board games, other stuff at this particular gaming store. It's 100% miniature wargaming, which is really quite fun. So a lot of the miniatures that they have there, of course, you have GW miniatures, but you'll see a lot of Perry miniatures, Warlord miniatures, Corvus Belli, Malifaux, War Games Atlantic, Firelock Games, North Star miniatures, everything for Frostgrave and Stargrave, and just a ton of other manufacturers and lots of books. You'll even find books, all things historical wargaming, a lot of different things, even from some of the games from Two Fat Lardies, which are, just, really delightful games. Lots of hobby products there. The paint that they have, they've got AK Interactive, Monument, the GW, of course, Vallejo, Army Painters, and a handful of others. And other than having a very wide selection of products, they also have a lot of gaming tables. It's actually 3 different levels in the store. And on the top level, the middle level is where most of the products are. On the top level, there's something like 10 gaming tables. They've got a closet full of terrain that's available for all different types of games. And then in the basement is where more of the historical games are played. And that's where most of the historic miniatures are also kept. And they've got another 5 tables down there. And then the gaming club that's mostly associated with this area and close to Gajo Games is called Bravo Company Wargaming Club. And really just a great group of people in that club. There's at least I think there's at least a couple hundred people in that club. And there's a lot of different games that a lot of different people play. And most popular games are probably Bolt Action and 40K. And then you've got Conflict 47, AOS, Old World, Napoleonics, Flames of War, Team Yankee, BattleTech, Star Wars Legion. A lot of people interested in other games like Stargrave and Frostgrave, Flood, other great, more independently written games. And so it's really a great group of people. We've got a very active Discord for that club, and like I said, just a really great group of people. Always easy to find a game of a number of different games that you could want to play. So yeah, Utah Bravo Company, Wargaming Club, and Gajo Games, both phenomenal. If anyone's ever in the area, a great group of people and a great gaming store to go to. Thanks, Matt.
Hello, Matthew. It's Bruce here, aka Roll for Wounds on the Discord. I believe the question for this month, October, is about friendly local gaming stores. I'm so late in responding that you've changed the description already. So if that isn't the topic, then, well, to hell with it. You get an unsolicited ramble anyway about local gaming stores. So I'm from Norwich, lovely part of the country. And we're very lucky to have a few gaming stores to the point where I struggle to keep up with them all. But the mainstays are Athena Games in the cobbled city centre and the Games Table, also on the cobbled city centre, just stone's throw, literally, from Athena Games. I go to Athena. They have a lovely... they have a basement, a very colourful basement full of everything from Warhammer to Wargames Atlantic miniatures, Kings of War, Napoleonic, rows upon rows of board games, and then loads of role play, gubbin and peripherals. So downstairs you're catered for if you want to part with money. And then upstairs is a gaming hall, which is just like a big school cafeteria with rows and rows of trestle tables where people sit opposite one another and play Magic the Gathering and Pokemon and all sorts of card games that I can't recognize. And then they also play miniatures, wargaming, and it's great. The staff are lovely. They set up all your terrain for you. They ask what you're playing. They take an interest in your matches. They organise tournaments, and it's a lovely place to enjoy that concentration of hobbyists. It's not uncommon for you to be playing a game of Old World and people just stroll in, watch your game for a few minutes, exchange pleasantries, walk out again. Turns out they just came to pop in and say hello. So yeah, Athena Games, big shout out to them. Besides that, of course, my main hobby fix comes from our local club. Again, lots of local clubs. You have to, if you look in all the nooks and crannies of the internet and social media, you will find clubs near your town or village. But ours, we have a few. The one I go to is called Last Stand, and it's a community centre / scout hut that's been hired on a permanent basis by the club, and it has walk-in wardrobes stacked floor to ceiling with terrain. It has great big 6 foot long, 4 foot wide gaming boards with goblin green flock. It has Grundon bins packed with terrain mats. Basically, every Wednesday we get a call out. You post the game you want to play. You get matched up. Thursday, you turn up, meet your opponent, shake hands, have a good laugh. We're very, very lucky. I mean, it gets to the point where you could turn up and, on a busy day, there might be 50 people in there playing. So yeah, great fun, lovely way to meet people. The combination of Last Stand and Athena Games has given our Old World community a pretty big shot in the arm. We just had a sold-out tournament a couple of weeks ago, and then we've got another tournament on in December. All very fun, very friendly, not competitive, just silly fun. 20 people in the same room banging soldiers together. But yeah, that's my local scene, and anyone in Norwich, Norfolk who didn't know about those places, check them out. It's a wonderful city, and one we're very lucky to have. Honorary mention, before I forget, is the Games Room, which is on it's on Elm Hill in Norfolk. Elm Hill being a famous filming location, so old is its cobbled streets. The Games Room is a great place. The guy there who runs it, I think he might be Canadian. He's an absolute wellspring of knowledge, and I go there for my Ralpatha metal miniatures and the odd role play magazine and things like that. But yeah,
So thank you very much to everyone who submitted a clip there. It was really good to hear from everyone. Lots of great things happening out there, isn't there? Lots of clubs, lots of stores, and obviously this is only the tip of the iceberg as well. I mean, there'll be more hobbyists out there than listen to this show, so we could take heart from that, I suppose. Okay, so the question of the month for November 2024 is, what's your relationship with miniature painting? Is it the main aspect of your hobby and something you strive for mastery or recognition in? Is it something you enjoy and find relaxing without worrying about perfectionism? Or is it something you'd rather not do at all, but you see it as a means to an end to get those wee guys on the table? Maybe even outsource it. Maybe you don't paint at all and you just have grey on the table, and that's absolutely fine too. So I'm really keen to hear from everyone about that. Go to bedroombattlefields.com/voicemail. And the deadline for that is Friday, the 29th of November. So I dare say everyone will be, or the vast majority of folks will be leaving it till the 20th, 29th to get those in. It just seems to be how it is. But I always appreciate folks' feedback. And one other thing I wanted to mention as well, Mark, was Santa Night Fever, a wee thing that we're running in the Discord. Secret Santa, of course, it had to have a Bee Gees pun in there.
Yeah, I saw this picture of Father Christmas that you shared, and he didn't really look quite traditional. He didn't have the white beard. He got these perfect teeth.
He had the white teeth.
He was looking very impressive. Got a medallion on. I was thinking, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Upon further scrutiny, it turns out it was the don't know if anyone's heard of him, but the singer Barry Gibb from the band The Bee Gees. Yeah, and it is actually him.
Yeah,
it's incredible. So maybe he is the real Santa.
Yeah, could well be. So, we're going to try a wee Secret Santa this year. You could join by joining the Discord. It's bedroombattlefields.com/Discord. There's a channel called, I think it's just called Secret Santa, but Santa Night Fever's the official title. So there's a wee link in there, and it's a very short form. You just need to let us know your name on Discord and what country you're based in, and then I'm giving myself a lot of admin here, but I'm going to try and match people up based on their countries. So I wouldn't necessarily want to draw someone in Trinidad and Tobago and they're sending something to Greenland, because obviously we've got masses of listeners in both those countries. So I'll make sure that people are only sending stuff locally. But in terms of the stuff you're sending, the idea I had was just pick something from your to-do list, your unpainted pile that you're probably not going to get to, and just give it to somebody else and give that miniature the opportunity to maybe get some paint on it this lifetime. So have you got some ideas in mind, Mark, about, without letting us know the actual miniatures, have you been giving it any thought?
I've got a few. Now, I've been quite good, actually, insofar as I've started clearing my backlog and painting quite a lot of the stuff I've got. However, there's definitely a good handful of miniatures that are in boxes that are kind of interesting and cool, but maybe don't fit in with anything else that I've got. And they're the ones that I suspect are going to stay in the box for the longest, but they could be absolutely perfect for someone else. So it might be, a miniature from a historic period that there's nothing else that I've got for, or a particular style. So yeah, there's definitely things there. And the other thing I'm kind of tempted by as well is maybe even just bidding on a few very old, unusual figures on eBay just to kind of collect a few together, and maybe one of those would be good to give on. So the kind of thing that, you don't, not necessarily an expensive model, but a rare, unusual one. So just an opportunity for someone to paint something completely different. Notice someone asked a question about, whether or not it'd be okay to give non-metal models or 3D printed models. And I presume the answer is absolutely. It's all about giving that opportunity to paint something interesting to someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I've absolutely no problem with that. Like, if somebody wants to print something out, it's all the same to me. A miniature's a miniature. It's more than its parts in terms of the materials it's made from. So yeah, I don't see that being an issue at all. And I don't think, in the spirit of these things, that anyone's going to receive something and think, I've been cheated. So we've got a fair few folks put their names down already, and we'll sort of leave that open for the remainder of the month. It's November time of recording, and then when we hit December, I'll close it, and then I'll look to pair people up, and they'll have enough time to get themselves to the post office. Now, I don't know if the post office exists anymore, but get to some sort of shop that you could send things and they might reach their destination at some point, possibly. So I hop on over to the Discord. That's a new platform. Hop on over to the Discord and get involved.
Excellent. Yeah, the Discord is just a place where all the kind of remnants of the conversations lurk around.
Yeah, it's like the
It's all
sump.
very quiet. And,
Yeah. Anything else you had for us, Mark, at all before we get things wrapped up? Anything else you wanted to mention, talk about, etc.?
I don't think so, not really. But I think just an ongoing plea for people to get involved and put stuff on the Discord and share things, and don't feel like that the Discord is a space where you need to kind of in any way earn your stripes to be able to put stuff on, or that stuff has to be finished or done, or that you need to have something very specific to say that's along the lines of what people have been talking about before. I think it's brilliant when someone introduces a brand new topic or talks about a game that other people haven't heard about, or says they're doing something that's quite niche. I think that it's made richer by the variety rather than anything else. So yeah, just keep on putting stuff in there, folks.
Thanks very much for listening to this episode of the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. If you enjoy the show, then please do share it with someone else you think might enjoy it too. And be sure to check out our Discord community of like-minded hobbyists, which you could find at bedroombattlefields.com/Discord. It'd be great to see you in there.